What brings more joy, buying something new or giving life to what was forgotten? These three machines have been asleep for years. Today, they're about to be brought back to life. How did I get here? It all started with the crazy idea to transform a wreck into something cooler than a supercar. I followed my plan and built something special. And when the project was shaping up to be great, life had other plans. I packed what I could and crossed countries to keep the dream alive. But what I found was my old garage falling apart and my projects buried inside. But after many years of dust and silence, can I bring them back? Will they ever run again? Join me and let's find out. When we decided to return home for a few months, in my head was very simple. Clean my old garage a bit and I can carry on with my project. The reality is that neglected things degrade. So in my previous episode, in the process of restoring my derelict workshop, I've unburied my old projects. And the more I worked on the building, the more grew this curiosity that I didn't even know I had. How will they look if I clean them? Will they run again? After so many years, do I even still like them? And with this question in mind, I carried on working on the garage one day after another, week after week, until this morning, when everything was ready and the waiting was finally over.
It is unbelievable how long this took. Outside is proper summer. I think it's like 36 degrees, but at least look at this. Today we're doing some cleaning. Can't wait to see the difference.
For more than a decade, Honda was producing its classic styling cruiser called Shadow. And then in 1996 they released the Shadow Joker. Yes, I have the quirky one. Because in a world of motorcycles, Shadow is another bike, but in a world of scooters, this one stands out. So when a friend called me that he knows one for sale, I knew I had to have it. Everything else came in a bag. Of course, non-runner. Nonetheless, I had a new project on my hands, and many challenges later, it was done. But that was many years ago. And it's time to bring it back once again. So
now I'm just going to see if it has any fuel, to see if I have spark, and if I have spark and I have fuel, normally it should make a bang.
And my first thought was to check the ignition. To get to the spark plug, I need to lift the seat. And since it was loose, the entire seat assembly can be removed to reveal the engine. And if you're enjoying this, please hit the good buttons. Great new stories are about to be told. After removing the spark plug,
wow, this is really dirty as well.
Even so, at this point, it doesn't matter since I just need it for a test.
So I'm gonna plug this in, I'm gonna put it over there.
Yeah, and I have a spark.
If the ignition works, the next question is, do I have fuel?
Oh my god, this is tight.
Oh.
As soon as I opened the tank, the smell of old fuel hit me.
Wow. This does not look promising at all.
Still, since I was so eager to see if it runs, I cleaned the spark plug with sandpaper and installed it back regardless.
If this thing is going to start, I'm gonna be amazed. I mean like this, without cleaning the carburetor and whatnot.
Yes, the fuel in the tank was old and smelling really bad, but I want to carry on anyway.
Ignition on! I have ignition! Okay. Brake on? Yeah, nothing. What? Starter works! No way!
Probably some leftover fumes, but still, it is good enough to keep me going. When I got this bike literally in a bag, the previous owner told me that it has an ignition problem, but it runs. And since I didn't know anything about scooters, I took it to a local shop where they said it's an easy fix. The next morning, they called me to collect the bike. They couldn't fix it. Probably they realized that it was too time consuming, or their talent just ended. Regardless, I was back to square one, and this time, it was all on me to make this work. Like so, I was back on the internet learning how a two-stroke engine works. I found out that mine had the wrong stator, the crank sensor had split wires, and the CDI was incompatible. I installed the correct parts and the engine was running again. Success! Except, flat out I was struggling to overtake cyclists, and soon after it would overheat going at that speed. So, If the worst thing I had to do was to modify the engine and there were plenty of tuning parts available, it couldn't be that difficult. Why should I worry? Well, for quite a few things. As I found out, a more powerful engine wouldn't help. To have this scooter do 30 miles an hour without feeling like it was going to explode at any moment, I needed to modify the transmission. That is the belt-driven CVT transmission that has a centrifugal clutch. The higher the engine revs, the more is the belt pushed up on the variator pulley on the engine side, getting a higher speed. Bigger variator equals greater speed. Simple. Only that, the transmission cover was too small to allow me to install a bigger variator. I could have resigned myself to the fact that the scooter was slow or think for another solution, but after riding it for a few times, I found its real problem, one that could end my project for good. Hang on, it's about to start. I'll explain the problem later. And now that I know it starts, I took the fuel intake pipe of the carb and plugged it straight into a made-up reservoir. Because if it's going to run like this, that means that my problem is somewhere on the fuel line. Either the fuel pump or the one-way valve is seized, either the pickup point is clogged inside the tank. And if the Shadow was bought with all sorts of problems...
On the other hand, this Ducati was in really good condition. I got it from a friend of mine, low mileage, no oil leaks, but then I've just decided to take it apart and then make it my own. But now I'm just wondering if it's going to start, because I know for sure that the carbs are not in sync, or they're not in perfect sync. This was not started in many years, like the other one as well. So I'm just gonna push it slightly more out because it is incredibly hot.
Unlike the Mickey Mouse bike, the Monster does not have a kickstart pedal. I know, everything is backwards. To reach the battery, I need to lift the fuel tank, but I can't until I remove the seat. And on mine, to do that, first I need to remove the rear overseat trim. Monoposto, a fancy name for a cover to cancel the rear seat. Although,
I wanted to have the monopost look, but to actually have two seats.
So I bought one. It was a full cover and then I modified it. I've used foam to raise the seat, and this is what I ended up with. After unscrewing the securing bolts, I removed the trim, unlatched the seat,
There you go.
and with it off the bike, I could finally lift the tank to reveal the top side of the engine, and already an issue.
This is loose. This is a vacuum, it's cracked. So looking over here, I can only see this one. So I presume it's gonna go over there.
I installed a battery, but I don't really have high hopes, as it's roughly 10 years old.
Now let's see if I have any petrol. Yeah, this is bone dry, which in this case I think it's a good thing. Let's see if I have ignition. We have ignition.
Please to light up the cluster. The question is, does it have enough juice to move those big pistons?
It's in neutral, so now I wonder. Nothing.
Plan B it is. I took the battery from the car. I've checked the oil, removed the spark plugs, and cranked to lubricate the engine just in case it wants to run straight away.
That should do it. I'm gonna clean the spark plugs, plug them back in, put some fuel into the tank, and let's try it. Wow!
But no matter how long I tried, it would not run unless I poured some fuel into the intake. It was getting late, so I've decided to start the Micra and bring my morale up, as this one should start very easy. The Nissan was not the car that I wanted. I mean, look at it. But somehow this Micra chose me. Only later I found it was the first Japanese car to win the European Car of the Year, and even though I didn't think much of it, very quickly it grew on me. I found out it was the version with a bigger engine and a lot of factory extras. And since I was stuck with it, I took it apart to at least try and make it nicer. And after many hours of work, I had my own version of the K11. It served me well for many years as a daily. Every single day going to work, Arctic -20 or Desert 40+, it did not matter. It was running every single time like it should. It took me far and wide across Europe every single weekend to do what I love in pretty much the same setup until 2018, when I've made some changes. Because soon after, life had other plans and I had to leave it behind. I've placed it on improvised stands to preserve its tires and bushings, knowing I won't be able to move it regularly, and stayed like so for many years to come, until it was time to put it back on its wheels. Though,
before I do anything, let's check the oil. The oil level is good. Now I can crank the engine.
I connected the battery back and removed the spark plugs to crank the engine, just as a safety measure to have the oil running through and lubricate everything before I attempt to start it. And with everything back, it was time to start the engine.
There's a fuel pump.
Or at least, that's what I thought. No matter how long I tried, there was not even a single sign that it wants to run. And just like so, went my hope to bring my morale up. Since I don't know if the fuel gauge still works, and unlike the motorbike, I can't shake the tank, I decided to pour some fuel into the intake and see if I have a fueling issue. Because if it's going to start like this, I will know that the ignition is fine, and the fuel pump, I already know it works. So, this leaves me with a few potential problems. Either the fuel line is broken or clogged, either the fuel filter is blocked with debris, either the injectors are seized, or worst, a mix of all of them. I know it is progress, but it's progress in a problem that I didn't want it in the first place.
So I am just going to stop because it is, from all three, the one with the least cylinders started, kind of. The Monster started, but again is not receiving fuel. And this started as well, but it's not receiving fuel. The fuel gauge shows that the level is really low. So first thing in the morning I'm gonna get some fuel, put it in, and then see if it starts. And in the meantime, I think I'm just going to go and cool off because it is unbelievably hot here. Yesterday was a bit annoying because I was hoping for better results, but it is what it is. Today is a new day. I went and picked up some fuel. Let's put it in and hopefully it's gonna start. Straight away! Can't believe I struggled yesterday so much. It was just the fact that there was no fuel. Unbelievable. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's a great start for today. But now while I'm here, I'm thinking,
Why don't I remove the silencer from the exhaust?
whew, it is definitely running rich, but I knew that because one of the big problems of these cars are the exhaust manifolds that crack and then the O2 sensors. Well, yeah, it doesn't run the correct mixture. But anyway, let's hear how it sounds. Ignition on. Oh, it's very quiet. Oh, it's surprisingly good actually.
It's strange as I remember doing the soundproofing, but not how well it worked. And speaking of things that doesn't work,
Power steering is not working.
but how could it work without any oil? I added fluid and tried again.
Now. Oh my god.
I moved the steering left and right a few times and then checked the level again.
This is the cold minimum, this is the cold maximum.
And since the level was still way under, I added some more.
It is up to level. Let's see how it sounds now.
I'm listening if the steering pump still makes the humming noise. If I can hear it, that means it's damaged.
It's quiet. Perfect.
And since the day started so great, I was thinking, why don't I carry on fixing stuff? From the two, the scooter was looking to be the easier fix, so I removed the rear half of the body to gain full access to the engine. I'm disconnecting the filter and removing the feed line of the fuel pump, and I'm plugging it straight into my made-up reservoir, eliminating the tank. I'm doing this to check the pump. If it works when I crank and the engine is producing vacuum, I should see pulses of fuel. Good. So if the fuel pump works, I'm removing the filter. I blew some air through it and it seems to be alright. So that leaves me with the pickup point in the tank blocked. Since I can't reach it and I'm after a quick result, I'm installing the rubber pipe back and use compressed air to unblock the strainer. Maybe I should have removed the cap first? But still, it worked. I mean, look at this chimney. So, if in theory the fueling system is good, I'm connecting everything back up to the fuel pump and... Yes, look at this Trevi fountain of high-octane rocket fuel. I can already see the ponies running free. I'm connecting the last pipe back and
now this is what I call a success. Ideally, I would have to remove the tank, but to be honest, I'm not bothered. I know that it runs now, I can take it for a spin. Hopefully it's not gonna catch something and get stuck in traffic, but what a great day it is today.
since I feel like I'm on a winning streak, I installed everything back and moved on to the Monster. This might look very different. It's bigger, faster, it has an extra piston, but the problem is the same. It does not run. More precisely, no fuel is reaching the engine. And just like the scooter, this has a vacuum-operated pump, and to check if it works,
I disconnected the feed line to the carbs, and now let's see if the fuel pump makes anything. Yeah, it doesn't do anything, so
I'm installing my improvised tank back and check if the Monster wants to start by bypassing the fuel pump. I poured some fuel and...
wow, straight away. Okay, so I can feel the fuel pump pumping air. So that means the only thing that is not running right now is fuel from the tank to the pump.
So I disconnected the pipe after the filter and...
Oh, there's fuel coming, lots of it.
At this moment, the only thing left is the valve that opens the circuit under vacuum, and... I'm a bit puzzled. If everything works, where's the problem? Maybe I should have started by checking the lines?
This one goes nowhere, this one is broken, this vacuum line goes nowhere.
And that is my issue. It's all starting to make sense now. The vacuum line to the valve was bad, and when I installed it back I accidentally plugged the overflow pipe of the battery, and that leads nowhere. How could it run if there was no vacuum to open the valve in the first place? So I'm installing everything the correct way, and...
now it should be under its own fueling system. Let's see. Ignition on. That sounds promising.
It's all great now. Although, when I twist the handle, the throttle's open. And with more air that goes in, there should be more fuel going as well. Except, it doesn't. Because as soon as I try to rev it, it chokes. I guess I need to open up the carburetors, but that is a tedious job for which I need to have a gasket kit, otherwise, most probably I'm only wasting my time. I wish I could do more right now, but we'll have to see a bit later if I manage to fix the carbs and hear this Monster running properly.
It's a new day and it's a really hot one, but I don't care. I have all the cleaning products ready, the pressure washer is ready. I'll be back. I'm gonna take the moped out and I'm gonna start with that.
If only in my dreams. But still, on such a great summer day, it's hard not to be in high spirits. I know, I shouldn't be washing in direct sunlight, but I can't really make a swimming pool inside the garage. The pressure washer is great for getting in all the hard to reach spots. I sprayed some cleaning products, let it soak for a few minutes, and then just a bucket of soapy water and a rag. I don't know why, but there's a certain magic in cleaning something you love. Maybe it's a feeling of purification, the feeling of a fresh start, a second chance to something that should have shined the entire time. I don't know. It's like when you put your palms in dirt when you're gardening. Yes, you have mud on your hands, yet there's a sense of reconnection, of belonging. I guess sometimes in life, these three simple things are the ones that makes us the happiest.
Is it perfect? Definitely not, but it is really cool. So if you would like to see this one restored properly, maybe you can leave me a comment and I'll think about it. Until then, I'm gonna drive this in and let's take the Ducati out.
It's interesting how opinions change over time. When I was 19, I did not like the Monster at all. Besides, I felt too young to own a bike. 30. 30 should be an age I'm old enough to have one. When time came, I got my motorcycle license and realized I don't really want something crazy fast. I'm just grateful I made it through the fast and furious years. So in my search for a bike that is a bit different, something with character, of course, I ended up with the very thing I said I'd never get, a Ducati Monster. Yes, it was the less powerful M600, but this one had been upgraded. Siova adjustable upside-down fork, dual Brembo discs at the front, a fancy Marvin Sport exhaust, and the second I heard that deep V-twin rumble, I realized this is a bike that has plenty of character. It just needed some personal touches to bring it out more. Everything came off. I added a few rare items, custom parts were created, and plastic got replaced by carbon fiber. My vision was one of contrasts: exposed carbon, glossy frame set against deep satin body parts, punctuated by deliberate flashes of red. My vision was a clean, dark, sophisticated look. Even now, while simply washing the bike, I'm realizing there are so many things I would still do to this bike. Or maybe I should just build another, the single-seater beast I sketched many years ago. A monster of a monster.
Again, is this perfect? No. But what to expect after so many years? Regardless, what a big difference this is. Now that these two are done, let's clean this one. Maybe I should open the mirror first. I think this should be it. As you can see, it's really hot. Yeah, let's clean it. What? 7-8 years of dust?
Every project needs to begin somewhere. Yes, this one started with me not wanting it, but maybe I shouldn't have judged this book by its cover, because it ended up as my daily. Actually, maybe I should say that it really started when I hit a patch of black ice and slid off the road, damaging my boot lid. So I went to my local breakers and got lucky because they had one, and in black, and with a cool spoiler. Only later I discovered that it came from a rarer, sportier model called the Super S, and months have passed until I found its matching front bumper.
I think this is the time when I should put the bikini on.
The glass from the front lights were converted to clear plexi. I modified the headlights and the fog units. I used Mark III golf projectors and the base of a beer can as a shroud. New paint, months of searching, and the 1,000-mile trip for a set of unicorn wheels. And the result?
It turned out really good, way better than I thought. I'm gonna drive it in and I'm going to detail them to make them a tiny bit better. But because it's so hot, I think I'm going to do a night shift.
Next day though...
And now that the outside temperature it is really comfortable, I can actually focus on cleaning this a bit without feeling that I'm going to kill myself. So let's get cracking. I need to clean the interior now, but I was expecting this to look a lot worse, and actually it looks surprisingly good, so this shouldn't take too long. And while I am here, I think I'm going to tell you a bit about everything that I've done to the interior.
I suppose this is what happens when you buy a car from Austria, a country renowned for its relationship with winter. And probably the rest of them didn't help either. At this point, I decided to completely replace the floor, thinking that if the car is going to collapse, it's going for the scrap. If it doesn't, it's moving on to the next level.
The main thing that you can maybe see or you can't see is the fact that I've put a roll cage in, and this is cold drawn steel, so it's exactly the thing that they would use in rallying. And the whole point of this was to have a roll cage that was really well integrated into the car, and it gives you the safety without feeling that you're jumping into a rally car. Because this isn't a rally car or a track car, it wasn't meant to be at all. Yes, I do have plans to make it a lot more powerful, but that's another story. The main thing about this one was just to make it a bit nicer. That's why I've matched it with the interior, and then I trimmed it around the dashboard so you can't see gaps. And then it just comes down here to the pillar. It joins over there under that trim. This is the roll cage over there, really nice and tucked in. And then here on the back, it goes across the car under the seat, as you can see here, and it is again really nice and discreet. And I've made these trims over here, one here, and I've put the rings on the cluster, and then I retrimmed this in leather to have the chrome logo. I couldn't find this anywhere available, so I had to be a bit creative, and I found these on the center caps for the wheels, for the alloy wheels, and then I just removed them, and yeah, this is it. Then the cup holders, originally it has, but I didn't like them, so I've installed these ones. They're from an Audi A6, and then for the gear knob, I wanted something a bit more posh, so I've got this one from a Peugeot. I swapped the original seats, yeah, not very inspiring as you can see. For these ones, which came out from a Toyota Celica, I think. Obviously I retrimmed everything and then done it in my own way. And then over here, when I've done this car, you couldn't buy Android units like you can do now with floating screens, so I've used, it's still here. And then this will act as a support for a tablet, and there is a small air vent over here to prevent it from overheating and turning off. And the plugs were put over there so that I can install this in one go, so I wonder if this still goes, so really cool. Oh, and it works! Wow, okay, let's turn it on. How cool is that? Look at that. Music. Oh, you know, this is really cool.
Music? At first thought irrelevant for many people. But can you imagine a world without it? Your favorite movie without a soundtrack? Going out trying to have a party in complete silence? Not very exciting, is it? I'm just grateful that is part of our life, every day. And with the interior cleaned, I need to focus my attention to the paint.
I am not looking after perfection, but it is looking a bit tired. So I'm just going to sand this down a bit and then use some polishing compound. So let's see how it goes. I'm going to start with the bonnet, and then if it goes well, then I'll do the rest.
I'm starting here because I think it's the most important panel. If it looks good, you know what they say about first impressions. I'm using 2000 grit on the orbital sander, working my way across the entire surface and making sure not to stay in one spot for too long, as there is a high risk of going through the paint.
I think this is where I'm going to stop because, well, first of all, I don't want to make this a show car. Second of all, I don't know how thick this paint is and I don't want to run through it. It's not going to be perfect. There are still a lot of imperfections into the paint, but I don't care. I'm just gonna polish it now, and I know that it's gonna look a million times better. So let's start with the compound.
There is a tool for checking the thickness of a paint, but since I don't have one, I'm just going to take my chances. My Nissan has a single stage paint, meaning that it doesn't have a clear coat. It is the paint itself that shines. So I'm using a fast cutting paste and work my way up, making sure I don't damage the paint.
Wow, what a difference this is. Here I can pick up all the imperfections, and that's why I'm so critical. But in real life, oh my god, this car is going to look £1,000,000. The front bumper isn't perfect. Someone hit me at some point and then this cracked. So I can't do anything about that. But this one, I wish I was a bit more careful, because when I did the roof, one of the panels, well, the roof was off and then the wind caught it and it dropped and the corner went straight onto the bumper and I have this massive scratch over here. So now I'm just gonna try to correct it a bit. I'm gonna degrease it and then manually I'm going to put some paint on top.
After it cured, I sanded the spot, but the scratch was still visible. I applied more paint to level it with the surrounding area, removed the high spots using 2000 grit sandpaper and finished with a polish. I'm sure I could have done a better job, but since the bumper has so many defects, ideally it would need some repairs and a full respray.
Yes, it's not perfect, but it is 1,000,000 times better from what it was. The bonnet turned out really good, but on the rear you have a bit of reflection from the outside and I think you're gonna see the difference a lot better. So first I'm gonna dust this off a bit and then repeat the steps. Now this is what I would call a very good result. If you are familiar with paint correction, then you know all of this, probably a lot more, but I'm sure that there are people that would like to find out what I did. The first step was to use a 2000 grit paper on the orbital machine to sand the surface as flat as possible to get rid of the minor imperfections and the orange peel look. The second thing that I did was to use a coarse polishing paste. I went in a cross pattern, first like this, then like that, then on a diagonal, then the opposite. Now I'm going to wipe this down with a microfiber cloth. If I still see any scratches, I'm going to repeat the process. If not, I'm going to carry on until I finish the entire panel. Once this is done, I'm going to switch to a fine polishing paste. I'm going to repeat exactly the same process. And because this is a dark color car, as soon as I'm going to take it out, I'm going to see marks from the polishing process. To get rid of that, I'm going to use a final paste, which is called an anti-hologram, and that is going to give me that final perfect mirror finish.
After the first pass with the fast cut compound, it might look great on camera, but this is what the reality looks like. There were still plenty of scratches left, probably from a grain of dirt. Regardless, I have to be patient and repeat the steps if I want a better finish.
One thing that wasn't working on this car is the remote control. The battery looks like they had power, but this is not working anymore, and it's a bit annoying because, yeah, you get used to a remote control. So I went and picked up a new set of batteries, and hopefully it's gonna work, because otherwise I don't really know why it shouldn't work. But happy days! Now this is after cleaning, where it looked really good. Now this is how this looks, and as you can see, it is a massive difference.
The paint looks a million times better, but I still have to do something about the wheels because they just look bad and they bring the car down. Unfortunately, I do not have the time to properly polish this because it's really time consuming. So I'm gonna try something different. I am going to use a limescale remover, which in theory, because it contains acids, when I'm gonna spray it on, it should break the oxidation from the aluminium, and with a toothbrush, which is gentle enough, I'm just going to brush everything off. At the end, I'm going to use a metal polishing compound with a microfiber cloth, and I'm not looking after perfection, but I'm just hoping that this is going to give me a far better looking wheel without spending a huge amount of time. So let's start.
The limescale remover worked really well, even though I did have to sand the surface in some spots. To speed things up, I used a buffing mop that I found in the closet. At the end, a bit of tire shine, and the result... This one, on the other hand, has missing bolts and curb marks on top of needing a refresh. I'm using a blade to remove the sharp high spots, and...
Normally you should use a welder and fill this up with aluminium, but since I don't have that, I'm just going to leave it. I don't want to make a big pit over here and the same here. I'm just gonna sand it a tiny bit so it looks slightly better.
Since this is not really a split rim, I'm using a drill to clear the plastic bits stuck in the wheel. While I was cleaning though, I remember somewhere I should have some leftover bolts. After a quick search, I found the bag, but do I have enough given how small the bag is?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exactly 6.
Maybe I should play the lotto too.
One thing that doesn't sit well with me anymore are the struts. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just don't like them anymore. So I think I'm going to keep the splitter for the time being, and I am going to remove the struts.
Now thinking about it, the new A-Class AMG was out. The Golf was also more aggressive than ever, and since my plan was to one day have this really fast, I started working on an effective aero kit so that the car wouldn't take off on the autobahn. But looking at the car how it is now, I think I just prefer it without them.
Now that the car is pretty much done, I'm super happy how it turned out. I'm gonna focus on doing this.
Coming back to the story, it was only once I started riding the Shadow that its real problem became obvious. A faint noise quickly turned into a disaster. A failed bearing has caused the gears to grind through the final drive casing. And since it was beyond repair, I had a light bulb moment during a lunch break while looking at the old Peugeot scooter I sold to a colleague. After some measurements, I realized the engine was a direct fit. I tracked one down, swapped it in, and since it had a larger transmission case, I upgraded the variator and weights and fitted the largest tire possible. The result was 50 miles an hour on the GPS, making the legal 30 miles an hour limit feel effortless. It was exactly what I wanted. A great looking, easy to use, quick trip to the grocery store bike.
Now that this side is done, I'm gonna carry on with it.
Cracks in the sidewalk, growing in silence, wearing your yellow crown. Hey, little dandelion. Hey, little dandelion. Born to burn and quiet.
The shadow is pretty much done, so for the time being I'm going to leave it to the side. I'm going to bring the Ducati in, and since it doesn't run, I'm suspecting that the jets from the carburetor are clogged up because fuel is coming till there.
Wow, look at this.
This one is completely clogged, using a copper wire like this.
Yeah, that's very nice.
This looks a million times better. Now this is the main jet, and it looks to be completely clogged.
Wow! What a big difference! Okay, ignition on, let's go.
At the beginning I asked myself if I still like them. After so many years in a world dominated by overcomplicated things where everything is optimized, high performance, these are ancient, simple machines. They're not fast or very expensive, but they don't have to. Exactly because of what they are, I have a big smile on my face. And now more than ever, I absolutely love them. And with these items collected, let's build a steering wheel for Gojira. My name is Camil, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
I'm feeling so confident that it's going to run that I plugged everything back. I don't know if this is a mistake or not, but anyway. Yeah! By the flames that it throws, I'm pretty sure it's running rich as well.